If you enjoy books that explore the intimate rhythms of working the land, or if you're drawn to memoirs that blend nature writing with personal reflection, or if you have ever wondered what a life shaped by sheep, weather, and the changing seasons might reveal about the world and about yourself, if so, then today's book just might be for you. Today, I'll be reviewing The Saltstones, Seasons of a Shepherd's Life by Helen Whybrow. Welcome to Spencer Reads Everything. I'm your host, Spencer Duncan, and on this channel I read widely across genres from history and biography to contemporary nonfiction, fantasy, and anything else that catches my curiosity, and I give you thoughtful, structured reviews to help you decide what to pick up next. I first heard about The Saltstones, Seasons of a Shepherd's Life by Helen Whybrow on the PBS NewsHour Summer Read Recommendations, or at least I'm pretty sure that is where I came across it. I'm not entirely sure, but anyways, they mentioned it as one of the new memoirs worth keeping an eye on. And the premise immediately struck me as both grounded and quietly ambitious, so when it was available, I knew I wanted to read it. This book follows the author through the seasons of her life as a shepherd in Vermont, weaving together the daily realities of lambing, tending pastures, working dogs, and navigating weather with deeper questions about grief, community, and the long commitment required to care for land and animals. It is reflective, attentive, and rooted in place, and it captures a way of living that is both ordinary and deeply meaningful. But before I get into the novel itself, let's take a look at the author. Helen Whybrow is an accomplished writer, editor, and teacher whose life and work are deeply rooted in the landscape of Vermont. According to the book's author bio, she is the author of A Man Apart, Bill Copperthwaite's Radical Experiment in Living, and Dead Reckoning, Great Adventure Writing from 1800 to 1900. She has also edited several anthologies, including Hearth, a global conversation on community, identity, and place, as well as Coming to Land in a Troubled World. Her essays and shorter writings have appeared in respected literary journals and magazines such as Hunger Mountain, Eating Well, and Orion. She teaches at Middlebury College as a visiting professor and has served on the faculty at the Bread Loaf Environmental Writers Conference, placing her in conversation with established voices in nature writing and environmental literature. She lives in the Green Mountains of Vermont, where she shepherds a 200-acre organic farm, an experience that directly animates this book, The Saltstones, which is meant as a grounding of her reflections in the day-to-day labor and rhythms and responsibilities of tending to a flock and a landscape. That is the author. Now, before I continue, I guess I need to give you a quick spoiler alert, although there truly is not much to spoil in the usual sense, but I also don't feel any caution about saying something that happens later in the book that maybe you didn't want to know about. But the thing is that The Saltstone is a very reflective memoir that, as I've said, is grounded in daily work and the passing of the seasons and the author's relationship to land and animals and community. So there are no major twists or dramatic reveals. And so I do want to be cautious and tell you that I may talk about things you didn't want me to mention, but I wouldn't say that any of them are going to be exactly something that would spoil the book, at least in terms of revealing a plot point. That being said, let's move on to the summary of the book, which is a little harder to do for this book, but I will give you what I can, tell you some of the little stories that she shares here and there. But by and large, it is a combination of shorter little stories that she's telling about her experiences with all the things, some that might be somewhat grand, some that are quite mundane. Actually, most of them are quite mundane, and also her reflections on those. So, The Saltstones follows our author, Helen Whybrow, through a year of shepherding in the Green Mountains of Vermont, using the cycles of farm work as a framework for reflecting on care, as well as grief and community, and the relationship between humans and land. The book begins in winter with the author preparing for lambing season, a time that requires vigilance, physical labor, and the constant balancing of intervention and trust. One of the early scenes features a ewe struggling to deliver, and the author stepping in with practiced steadiness to help bring the lamb safely into the world. These opening chapters establish both the intensity and the intimacy of her work, reminding the reader that shepherding is not a pastoral ideal, but a demanding and often exhausting responsibility. As she guides the reader through the seasons, she interweaves the routine tasks of tending a flock with larger reflections on her own life and the landscape that holds her. When spring brings new lambs, the challenges of weather and the constant effort to keep the flock healthy also come. Summer opens into a period of maintenance and movement, rotating pastures, repairing fences, training her sheepdog, and managing the constant negotiation between domesticated animals and the wider wilderness around them. This season also introduces Bronwyn, a young girl who becomes a steady presence on the farm, Through their interactions, the author reflects on mentorship, generosity, and the slow patience required to learn the rhythms of the land. Autumn brings a different emotional weight. The lambs grow, the fields begin to shift, and the author turns her attention to the markers of the year's work, including moments that invite gratitude and the ones that demand acceptance. The salt stones themselves become a recurring symbol. They appear as literal blocks of mineral placed in the pastures for the sheep, but also as figurative reminders of what endures across seasons, grief that shapes memory and decisions that shape communities, and the steady knowledge that the land holds its own history. Then comes, of course, winter. And when winter returns, not as a simple closing chapter, but as a space where reflection becomes quieter and much more introspective. The author recounts losses, both personal and pastoral, and considers what it means to choose a life that requires presence rather than escape. She writes about the isolation of rural living, the comfort of a familiar landscape, and the endurance demanded by a land oriented towards animals who cannot care for themselves without human attention. Across all seasons, the memoir holds a gentle but firm awareness of limits, the limits of control, the limits of ownership, and the limits of what can be known about the natural world. The author's reflections on farming are never abstract. They emerge from long hours of labor and intimate knowledge of her flock and the ongoing conversation between human intention and the land's own rhythms. The book ends not with a triumph of revelation, but with a sense of deepened humility. For the author, shepherding is a life of attentiveness, repetition, vulnerability, and wonder that she carries forward one season at a time. I really enjoyed The Saltstones, and even though it is not a memoir with a traditional narrative or a dramatic through line. Instead, it unfolds in a rhythm that mirrors the seasons that it describes. The experience of reading it felt almost meditative. The book asks you to slow down and to inhabit the pace of shepherding and to pay attention to small details that accumulate into something meaningful. If you're willing to move with that rhythm, the effect is surprisingly powerful, in my opinion. What struck me most was how well the book balances beauty and frankness. The author never romanticizes her work, nor does she treat the farm as a backdrop for easy inspiration. The imagery is quite vivid and often very stunning, but it is also grounded in the reality of physical labor, frequent loss, weather, just sheer exhaustion, and the unmistakable weight of responsibility. The memoir reminds you that nature is not only scenic, but it is demanding. It shapes you, it humbles you, and it pushes back. That honesty is part of what makes the book so engaging. The writing brings you back to nature in a way that feels both grounding and revelatory. There is a sense of openness here, but there's also a sense of discipline. The land and the flock require attention, and the reader begins to feel that attentiveness seep into the reading experience. It becomes a book that you do not simply consume, but you settle into it. And so for me, the impact came from accepting that the book is not trying to build to a grand conclusion. Instead, it succeeds phenomenally well at creating a living rhythm on the page. When you're ready to match that rhythm, it becomes deeply resonant, offering moments of clarity that arrive quietly but stay with you long after. So who is this for? This book is ideal for readers who appreciate quiet, reflective nonfiction that immerses you in the natural world. If you enjoy memoirs centered on land, animals, and the steady seasons of working the earth, then this book will be a rewarding experience. It is especially suited for readers who love pastoral writing and farm memoirs, or books that blend ecology and personal reflection and daily practice into one continuous narrative. It will speak strongly to those who value attention to detail and writing that invites you to slow down. If you find meaning in books like H is for Hawk or A Shepherd's Life or the work of Annie Dillard and Terry Tempest Williams, you will feel right at home in this world as well. Readers with an interest in sustainable agriculture or place-based living or the ethics of care will also find much, I think, to admire in this. Finally, I'd say that this is a book for anyone looking to reconnect with nature in a way that feels honest rather than idealized. It does not shy away from the difficulties of tending animals or confronting the harsher edges of the natural world. Instead, it invites readers to embrace the completeness of that experience. So if you're ready for a book that meets you with calmness, clarity, and sincerity, this one is for you. Who is this not for? Well, this book will not be the right fit for readers who prefer a narrative-driven nonfiction with a strong plot, a dramatic tension, or a clear storyline that is building toward a central reveal or some kind of conclusion. The Saltstones moves with the rhythm of farm life, which means it is cyclical rather than linear, contemplative rather than plot focused, And if you are looking for a memoir with a tight arc or a sense of forward propulsion, this definitely is not going to be something that you're going to connect with. It is also not well suited for readers who prefer fast pacing or constant shifts in scene. The book is deliberately slow and intentional. Its power lies in that repetition, in that routine, and in that very close observation. And so readers who grow impatient with long descriptions of landscape and weather and animal behavior or the inner workings of farm life may find the experience frustrating and certainly not worth the read. And I would say probably most importantly, those who want to idealize or want a purely inspirational nature memoir may also be disappointed. The author's writing is beautiful, but she's also frank about the exhaustion and the grief and the muck and the weather and the physical labor that shape her days. This is not a romantic escape into nature. It is a cleared-eye engagement with it. And finally, I say that readers who do not enjoy lyrical nature writing or who struggle with reflective meditative prose may find themselves disconnected from the book's main purpose. The Salt Stone asks for emotional stillness and patience. If that reading mode does not appeal to you, this is probably not the book for your shelf. The Saltstones is a gentle and steadily moving memoir that rewards readers who are willing to settle into its rhythm. It does not try to build toward a dramatic climax or present a single transformational moment. Instead, it offers something quieter and in many ways much more enduring. The author invites you to share the seasons with her, to witness the labor and the beauty of her shepherding life, and to recognize how meaning often emerges through accumulated attention rather than through decisive events. For readers ready to meet the book on its own terms, it becomes a surprisingly powerful experience. The clarity of the writing, the frankness about both joy and difficulty, and the grounding in place all work together to create a memoir that lingers. It is a reminder that nature writing can be honest without being bleak and lyrical without losing sight of the physical and emotional demands of caring for land and animals. Of course, I would love to know what your thoughts on this book are, or maybe any books similar to it, or anything else by the author. Please let me know what you're thinking in the comments. And while you're here, please check out more of my videos. I have a wide variety of content, from legendary biographies to high fantasy to young adult novels, and of course, everything in between. And if you're enjoying this video or any of them, please share them. The more people that know about my channel, the more videos I can make. And don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those notifications, and until next time, keep those pages turning.